Hi, welcome back to Burning River Bushcraft. Today we're going to be looking at air rifles as a hunting tool for wilderness survival. So today's video is going to primarily focus on 22 caliber, single shot, single cock air rifles. There's a large spring in here. This is usually known as a Springer air rifle. So this is one cock, insert a pellet into the bore, close it up, and you're ready to go. This is not the multi-cock air rifles similar to what I had as a kid. There's also newer versions that actually run off of compressed air tank. You would load up a tank somewhere in the rifle, and that tank would be good for 8 shots, 20 shots, who knows how many. But when you exhaust the air that's in the tank itself, you need either a scuba tank or a manual pump to pump the thing up and get shooting again. Something like this, it's simple to carry with you. You have one shot, one cock. You're dealing with consistent velocity the entire time, and this is going to be the focus of the video today. So I have quite a bit of experience with high-powered air rifles. Prior to moving to the country like I did, I had a RWS 177 caliber air rifle that I used for target practice. I lived in town. The rifle still was rather loud, but in no way would you ever consider that a firearm when you hear the report of that. So indoor practice, outdoor practice, and I did stretch it to hunting also in urban situations. That's my prior experience. Now when I moved out here to the country, the problem with the RWS and a lot of the heavier target style rifles is the weight. That rifle weighed more than any 22 that I own. That and being out here in the country where I'm not concerned with having a report of a gun and bothering any neighbors or anybody else, I really had no need for an air rifle anymore. I ended up trading it away. So what brought me back to an air rifle? This is actually my son's rifle. This is a Gamma Hornet. This is a 22 caliber suppressed air rifle. This has the CAT trigger on it, so it's got a pretty good trigger pull on it. And I got it for him to get back into some basic marksmanship training. We were trying to gear up for deer season, and just with his commitment level, I wasn't quite sure that I was going to be able to get him to go out and shoot a deer rifle often. So with this rifle, I was able to set up some targets. We had target courses set up through most of the year, and he got very proficient very fast. And just watching him use it and what little bit I did, I earned a lot of respect for a simple rifle like this. So major differences between a modern Springer gun compared to my RWS that I had in the past. Number one is going to be the caliber. This is a 22 caliber air rifle. My 177 was proven to kill squirrels and rabbits. Done that many times. With the 22, squirrels have already fallen into this, as well as groundhog and raccoons. So this is a whole lot more powerful with a whole lot bigger bullet than the 177. So the number two advantage to the modern Springer style air rifle is going to be the weight, and a lot of that comes from the stock. This is a composite stock. The rifle itself weighs around 6 pounds. My RWS had a full wooden stock with a high comb on it and a full pistol grip, so it was very comfortable to shoot, especially in certain field positions, but it just wasn't worth carrying it. With a rifle like this, especially for a junior shooter, it's an afterthought to carry it. It's super easy to carry, not something that I'm really concerned with bringing along as an afterthought. So the next advantage to the modern air rifle, and this would be the case with either the Springers, the single cock Springers like I'm shooting here, or some of the guns that feature an external tank, is the noise reduction. Now air rifles are always going to be quieter than a normal centerfire or rimfire cartridge. However, they can still be loud. My old RWS was extremely loud for a rifle. It actually, the recoil on it, the rifle shook side to side. So on a air rifle in general, the recoil does not go back. The spring goes forward, so the rifle actually jumps forward. On the RWS, I think it was a 48 I had, mine actually shook side to side. It was really something awful. Nothing you couldn't get by, but it wasn't the most pleasant shooting experience you could get. The modern air rifle, this one's suppressed. Let's see if you can see the baffles there. So this has got an internal suppressor. It's got 4 expansion chambers on it, and it does a pretty good job of quieting the entire system down. I get a lot of questions. If you're not on Instagram or Facebook, it might be worth it. Follow me there. I'm on Burning River Bushcraft on both Instagram and Facebook. But I had a couple posts featuring this rifle with a squirrel that I had taken, and I got a lot of questions on how the noise was. So right now I've got a loaded rifle, just so you can hear the shot. We're going to just a quiet smack. I've actually dropped things out of my tree stand and it made more noise than this. Very quiet report that has a lot of advantages to it. First, there are certain times you don't want people to know that you're hunting. I'm not advocating breaking any rules whatsoever, but there's certain times that I don't like to advertise the fact that I'm out there hunting. A rifle like this, noise like that, no one's going to attribute that to a gun at all. Number two for that advantage would be second shot at game. Even though this is a single shot rifle, not a repeater like you would have with a 22 long rifle, I have got multiple shots specifically at squirrels with a rifle, with this rifle right here. I have missed. A lot of times the squirrel hears the pellet go by it, or it hits the branch by it. It'll move around the branch, it'll do something, and as soon as that squirrel's out of sight, I'm breaking the rifle down, I'm reloading it, and I usually do get a follow-up shot if needed. Very, very important detail, you're going to eat more with a quieter rifle. Along the lines with the report of this rifle is the fact that you can practice without bothering neighbors. Here I don't really have neighbors around, no neighbors that are close. But still, I don't want to be banging away with 308s, 30-30s all the time. A heavy rifle with a crack like that scares game from the area. It just bothers people. I don't like to hear somebody 4 houses down cracking with a 300 Win Mag all day. It just loses the quiet country aspect of things when there's constant noise. A quiet rifle like this, we can practice close to the house without walking all the way back by the firing range. It just makes life simpler. So another advantage to the suppressor like this is for new shooters. Air rifles in general are quiet, especially when you get down into the Red Ryder style or the multi-pump Crossman or something like that, daisies. This is a significant step up in power and a significant step up in accuracy. The layout of this rifle with the scope and a full-length stock, this is a great transition piece from the smaller child-size air rifles up to one that mimics a full-size hunting rifle. It worked great for my son. It just got him out there shooting more, working on his sight picture and his trigger control, his follow-through, shooting in field positions. When I get a new shooter out here, this is the next step. I usually go from a Red Ryder, we step up to this, and then we go into the single shots like a cricket or something like that. Suppressor quiets everything down, makes the shooter more at ease, and lets them focus on the basics instead of the noise and report. Now, I was looking for my son an air rifle, and I kind of jumped into this Gammo. I did a little bit of research, not a whole lot, and I am more than pleased with it. This model is the Hornet. They have an upgraded model that has fixed sights, and that's not a bad thing. As soon as I got this for him, I immediately wanted to get one for myself. Haven't done that yet. I may get the fixed sight model for myself, only as a backup. This is an underpowered rifle, so don't kid yourselves. So shot placement is critical. This comes with a 3-9 scope on it. Some of the Gammo packages come with a 4. I looked around, was able to find this one with a 3-9. I really like the power on the 9, so you can zoom in for larger or longer range shots. Not that important for hunting, but for target shooting it makes things a whole lot easier. The advantage to the backup sights, obviously, if the scope gets damaged, which air rifles are nasty on scopes. Air rifles eat scopes alive. This one's been on here pretty good, no real issues, but at least I'm still in the game with a solid iron sights on this thing. The only disadvantage to that is my distance just shrunk significantly. So if I'm comfortable at 20 yards on squirrels with iron sights, I might have shrunk that back to 10 yards on squirrels. So that's something to be aware of, but at least you're still in the game with iron sights. That's never a bad thing. Now Gammo has, this is a scope base that has like studs that come up through the bottom, from my understanding. I've never had this apart. This is just from the research I've done. A lot of the buying a rifle without the scope, mounting the scope, that's where people get into all kinds of problems. Like I said, air rifles, because they recoil forward, scopes aren't designed for that. Scope mounts aren't designed for that. Gammo's got it right with this system right here. This is a very good one. Also critical for me is this has got this CAT trigger system, the CAT trigger. It's pretty darn light. I like a light trigger on a gun. If it was a gritty, nasty trigger, I probably won't shoot it because it's just not fun. Right from the factory, it's not crazy light or anything, but it's a smooth trigger, not much grit in it, and if you miss the target, it's not because of this trigger. So going right down the rifle, it's got a Monte Carlo stock. So with me shooting, with all the other people I've had shoot this rifle, there's zero issues with the sight picture with the scope. So this Monte Carlo lifts your head up the proper height for about anybody I've seen. They did a really good job matching the scope height to the comb on the top of the stock. As long as we're back here, the butt pad is a legitimate soft recoil pad, similar like what you'd have on a shotgun. It's got softer pockets, and I believe that's to help eliminate recoil. Again, thinking this is a younger shooter, any type of recoil could be conceived as bad. This is, in my opinion, recoil is not your main concern with this. It's just a more comfortable hold, and when I set this rifle down, this soft rubber pad just seems to stick to things and doesn't let the rifle slip. This is a very good job by Gammo. Now, a lot of composite stocks are slick to handle. This has a small stippling on the pistol grip as well as the fore-end. It's nothing too aggressive. If it was more aggressive, I wouldn't mind, but keeping a youth shooter in mind, that maybe they don't have calloused hands and it might seem overly rough to them. This is sufficient. This is like a worn out sandpaper, so it's enough where you can two-finger hold the rifle and not have to worry about it slipping. Now this is a steel receiver, steel barrel, but the exterior of this is fluted, and this is actually a plastic material, and I'm sure that has something to do with the weight. I like it for the fact that you don't have your greasy hands on the rifle often. So that's a common thing, especially with air rifles. They're usually not taken care of as well because they're not viewed as a real firearm. A lot of younger shooters just don't treat them right, aren't taught right by their parents. So you see a lot of rust and stuff on these. It's going to affect the longevity of the rifle. How many old air rifles you see that are rusted? That's because they weren't treated right and were forgotten about when they were put away. So I was concerned with the force it required to cock this. I wanted my son, younger shooters, whoever had this thing, to be able to take it out and shoot it with me supervising, but without me cocking the rifle every single time. This is a nice long barrel. It locks into place, no doubt, but the strength that requires this would probably be a bit much for, I would say, a shooter maybe 10 years old or younger. Now that depends on the shooter. You do have quite a bit of leverage with this thing, but that's something to be aware of. I would say anywhere 10 and under, they might have difficulty, depending on their size, just cocking this rifle. So nothing's perfect. So I believe this is the case with all Gammo rifles, is the safety. I have a pretty major issue with this safety. It's kind of black and it's hard to see here. Here we go, that's a good shot. So this is the trigger, this makes the gun fire, and this is the safety. Pushing it back is in the safe position. Forward is in the fire position. So I always teach everyone to keep your finger out of the trigger guard until you're ready to fire. So why the hell would you put the safety inside the trigger guard is beyond me. I cannot fathom why they would put the safety inside the trigger guard. And what makes it worse is it is the same shape as the trigger. So I come in here and I think I am putting the safety on. I am doing the exact same motion as I would be if I fired the rifle. I cannot understand why they would possibly ever think that that was a good idea. I am so nervous when I set this safety on. I watch it. I never do it from a full shooting position. Let me cock it here. Whenever I turn this safety on, I bring 2 fingers in, grab the trigger, ease it back while I'm looking at it. This is a major mistake by Gammo. The fact that it's a single shot air rifle, they're probably getting away with it. Truthfully, if the kids are out shooting, I have a stationary firing line where they don't go in front of that. If we're shooting a field course, that I'll show you in just a minute here, we don't load the guns until we're in position to fire. So in that case, the safety's not even in use. You crack the rifle open, you load it, you close it, you shoot it, and then you have an empty rifle from that point. But this is just something to definitely be aware of. So again, to take the safety off, I've got to bring my finger inside the trigger guard, push this forward, then find the trigger, squeeze the trigger, safety on. No idea why they thought this was a good idea. So as far as accuracy with this thing, it's very, very impressive. Springers, so single shot spring fired air rifles, don't have a high reputation for accuracy. A lot of moving parts on them. The fact that the spring's flying forward does upset the barrel in theory, and it's going to adjust your sight picture or modify your sight picture when the trigger breaks. In reality, it's not that big a deal, especially from field positions where you're not necessarily just shooting off of a brace. 1-inch targets at 25 yards are really no big deal with this, and that's the size of a squirrel's head. So if you're hitting squirrels in the head at 25 yards, you've really got no worries. Ethan killed a groundhog with this thing at 40 yards. He headshot it and put it down. So accuracy is there, power's there, but again, this is an air rifle. Let's not kid yourself into thinking it's more than it is. Shot placement is critical, and there's not much besides smaller birds, even up to a chicken-sized bird, I suppose, and rabbits that I would body shoot. I would not body shoot squirrels with this. I would not body shoot possums or raccoons or groundhogs or anything else. You can absolutely kill a squirrel with a body shot on this, but good luck finding them. They are going to move and they are going to be able to run off. You don't want to lose game with this. So with squirrels especially, they're tough critters. I try to limit myself to headshots. So disadvantages to an air rifle. Number one is going to be power. This is a 22 caliber. This is going about 975 feet per second. But let's not kid ourselves, this is not a 22 long rifle. The pellet's way less than a 22 long rifle bullet, and they do make more powerful air rifles, specifically in a 22 caliber, but to get that we have to break the sound barrier, so we go up over 1130 feet per second. So we get around 1200, 1250 feet per second. So then besides the report of the rifle and the spring, we also get that sonic crack when the pellet breaks the sound barrier. So when you get into the super high caliber air rifles, you lose a lot of the advantages we talked about before. So the big question really comes to durability of a modern air rifle for wilderness self-reliance. A lot of that is just in question right now. I can't imagine that modern air rifle with a break barrel that has a spring and has gaskets to seal the air can possibly last as long as a modern 22 long rifle. So in that sense, it's got so many weak points that this would never be considered a primary hunting tool under any circumstances compared to a modern firearm. But as a secondary choice or something that's available to you in a cabin or a camp setting, this is such a niche tool that excels at quietly plinking small game and keeping you as the shooter tuned up and shooting properly, that you really just can't afford to not have one. So I've got targets set up down the lane here. I've got a 1x1 at 20 yards, a 2x2 at 25 yards, and a 4x4 target at 30 yards. They might be a little hard to see. They're hard to see even for me because they're white. But maybe you can hear them when I shoot them. Okay, there's the 1x1. There's the 2x2. There's the 4x4. Let's give it a whirl here, see what I can hit. So that little 1x1's a tough target. I was just sitting in the chair, unsupported, just sitting on my knees. Kind of key thing with that though is you could hear the bullet hit the log behind the target, and just the pellet smacking it makes as much noise as the rifle does going off. And then the one that I did hit, you saw the big spin. So that's a lot of fun. Now the key thing with these air rifles is the wind is a killer. Okay, the wind will blow your pellets all over. Because they're bulk packed pellets like that, the skirt of the pellet, which is the back side here, sometimes they get damaged, sometimes they don't fit into the bore right, they feel loose. Those don't shoot as well, obviously. So a lot of variables, there's a lot of variables with this. And then you have to float your zero a lot more. So just 10 yards, just 5 yards at the right distance. You have to start aiming higher and lower depending on how it goes. Now this is sighted in longer just because I like to ding the targets a little further out. So I had a lot better luck on the 4x4 target. That was a center hold for me. See, the others I had to float it up and down a little bit. And I struggle with that, but I don't spend as much time with this thing as I really should.